This video is sponsored by Squarespace. I've been using the Leica M11p for about 3 months now, and in this video I thought I'd go through how I have the camera set up, the settings I've changed, and what I've landed on using the most. Kicking things off with an unusual one here, and I didn't think I would be doing this, but I pretty much always shoot in high contrast monochrome. So when I use the live view or when I see the JPEG previews, everything is black and white. The first reason for this is if I'm using the live view to take a photograph, or I'm hip firing, or I'm just generally shooting quite quickly. That's what happens with street photography, and I don't have time to bring the camera to my eye to use the viewfinder. The red focus peaking is way easier to identify on a black and white screen. The red focus peaking on a color scene does kind of mix in a little bit more, and it's generally harder to identify the focusing. So stripping it back to black and white, the red focus peaking stands out way more. I would say half the time I've enjoyed shooting with the screen completely turned off, and therefore I have to use the rangefinder viewfinder. However, if I'm getting shapy with my compositions and I'm lining things up very precisely and neatly, then I need the screen, I need the live view. And black and white just simplifies everything I'm looking at. Talking about my go-to settings here, if I'm out for a day of street photography, I typically always shoot in auto ISO and then manual shutter speed and manual f-stop. If the light is good, then I'll go to 1,000th of a second, anywhere between f5.6 and f11. And if the light isn't so good, which it hasn't been in London the past few months, then I will obviously have to compensate and lower the f-stop and lower the shutter speed, which can be tricky with street photography sometimes, but that's England. My approach with street photography is to keep the camera settings simple. I would rather be looking out at the world than looking down at my camera, fiddling with the settings too much. So auto ISO is pretty key for this. Therefore, I do use the highlight weighted metering. I would rather protect my highlights and potentially crush my shadows a little bit rather than expose the shadows and completely clip the highlights. With all that being said, generally speaking, I've had no issues with any of the files and where exposure is concerned. There is so much room to edit, lift the shadows, drop the highlights with the Leica M11 files that they've been fantastic to work with. And I also cap my ISO at 6400. Anything higher than that, I've found that the noise to be unusable. So 6400 is as high as the ISO, well, as high as I like to take it. I've seen a lot of other M11 users really push the ISO higher than that, but I just choose not to. Everything I've just mentioned there is where street photography is concerned, but if I'm taking photos of family, friends, just general portraits of people, then I will flick the whole camera into full manual and adjust accordingly. Before we carry on with this video, I'd like to just take a moment to share with you today's sponsor, Squarespace. I've been using Squarespace for years, long before they became sponsors of this channel, and if you're a photographer who wants to look more professional and take your business to a new level, I cannot recommend them enough. Squarespace has been my go-to platform for hosting my photography portfolio, selling products, and also writing weekly blogs. For example, I took the script from this video right here and I've turned that into a blog post on my website. A lot of people just want to read the content instead of having to watch the whole video, so that's why I do that. And I'll leave a link in the description so you can see what that looks like. And creating that blog page, once I've written the content, takes a matter of minutes with Squarespace. So why not at least start a free trial and see what you think? After that, when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/MikeChudley to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I've discovered a little problem with the M11, and maybe this is something that is better suited for a longer term review, but I'll mention it here in case anyone can relate. But when I'm previewing images on the back of the screen, I'm out doing street photography or wherever I am and I want to review some of the images, the preview kind of looks like I've missed focus and there's a lot more motion blur than what I anticipated. Then I get the final result back on my computer screen and I'm reviewing the images after. They're sharp, they're great, there's no issues whatsoever. It's almost as if the preview on the back of the screen is showing me a not as accurate version as the final result. Now obviously when you get an image up on a bigger screen and you look at it properly in Lightroom, the photo is going to look different to the back of the screen on the camera. But I just noticed that I'm out shooting and I'm thinking, damn, I'm missing focus a lot here. The photos look quite blurry, like what am I doing wrong? And then I get the photos back onto the computer and I'm like, oh, they're great. There's no issues here whatsoever. So yeah, the back of the screen's confusing me a little bit. I don't know if anyone else can relate to that. I've never had that with any other camera before. Talking about white balance quickly here, I pretty much always shoot on cloudy or shadow if I'm out and about, especially in London, because London can look very cold and blue. So I just kind of move the white balance over to shadow or cloudy just to warm it up a little bit. If I am inside shooting wherever, then I do switch the camera to auto. Now, I mentioned this in a previous M11 video. If you do shoot in auto white balance, the raw files can come out looking a little bit magenta. So just keep that in mind. It's not difficult to add some green tint or add some warmth to the temperature, but that's what happens when you use auto ISO, apparently. So you've just got to compensate for that. But otherwise, when I'm out doing street photography, I like to keep the white balance specific to shadow or cloudy, for example. And then that also makes it easier when you're batch editing that all of the photos are pretty consistent. I will say, however, that the auto white balance in the M11 is way better than the auto white balance in the Q2. For those that have watched this channel for a while, pretty much all of last year I used the Leica Q2 and the auto white balance was totally unusable. However, that's not the case with the M11p. The auto white balance is much better, but it is a little bit purple. Let's talk about megapixels now, and for all of my personal work and all of my street photography, I have landed on using 36 megapixels. I don't think I need 60 megapixels for anything, especially not street photography kind of stuff. And a lot of people have actually mentioned that the dynamic range is better in the 36 megapixel files. Maybe it is. I can't tell the difference. I can't even really tell the difference in quality just overall. Even when I'm pixel peeping, 36 megapixels is great, 60 megapixels is great. So yeah, I've landed on the medium-sized RAW files for this. However, if I am working and delivering files for someone that's paying me, then I will switch the camera into 60 megapixels just because I feel a little bit more comfortable delivering photos at a full res than medium. Even though I don't think anyone would be able to tell the difference. It's just a better thing to do, I think. I also have never shot anything in JPEG. I have everything saved as a DNG RAW file. I've not even really looked at the JPEGs. Maybe that would be a good idea for me to just try at least once. Maybe I'll go out and do a JPEG only Leica M11p street photography video. Who knows? But for now, everything is just RAW. Whilst we're on the topic of files, I've had one SD card error while shooting on the M11. And thankfully, when the error popped up, the camera kept shooting and saved the photos to the internal storage. So that's great. But I've got two opinions about this. Did the SD card fail because the camera somehow messed it up? Therefore, the internal storage kicked in and saved it. But if the camera didn't mess it up, then I wouldn't need the internal storage, because I have actually never had internal storage on any other cameras, and I've never needed it because I've never had any SD card errors. So it's kind of a chicken and an egg here. Did the internal storage do its job and back up my files? It did, but would the internal storage have needed if the SD card didn't fail because of the camera? So I don't know what angle to approach this from. I'm just thankful that no photos were lost. I was only doing street photography anyway when this happened, but my SD card failed and I was worried that maybe I wasn't going to have saved any of my photos from the day, but there was no issue there. It was all saved onto the internal storage. And just before I filmed this video, someone messaged me last night saying, "Hey Mike, have you had any issues with your SD card and any failures with your M11?" And yeah, so I know one other person has experienced this as well. So I thought I'd mention it. I've only customized two buttons on this camera. The first one is this small top button, which allows me to change the profile, which I have set to black and white. To be honest, that button might already be set by default to change the profile, so just check that. The only other button I've changed is the auto ISO dial, which is set to manual. And then when I push this dial in, I can quickly and easily adjust my ISO. If I didn't set it up like that, flicking this dial up and changing the ISO dial physically does feel a little bit cumbersome. It's much easier to have it set to manual, and I adjust it myself with a dial on the back. Physically, I haven't changed anything about the camera in terms of extra accessories, except for the strap. I use the Leica rope strap. It's a little shorter than the regular leather strap that comes with the camera. I find the regular strap just too long for the way I like to carry my camera around. I really, really like the red rope strap. And I think there's been a few brands and manufacturers that have made this strap. The red strap looks so cool. I think it's very aesthetically pleasing. However, it does make you and your camera stand out a lot more. And I don't necessarily want to draw any more attention to me if I'm doing street photography, for example. So the red strap looks excellent. I don't think I'll ever be buying it though, because I just probably won't use it. But if you were posing on Instagram, which is what having a Leica is all about, right? Then yeah, the red strap does look cool. Diving into the menu system here, I think I've covered most of these here. Drive mode, I've only ever used single. I've never even changed that setting, so diving further into the menu. Lens detection, auto, drive mode, single, no self-timer, highlight weighted metering, no exposure compensation, auto ISO. Auto ISO settings, I do set the minimum shutter speed to 500th of a second. White balance, we're on auto right now. File format in RAW, in medium resolution. JPEG settings, I've never gone into here, so I'll just ignore that. Auto preview off, I don't want the picture showing up once I've taken a photo, so I just, keep it simple. Talking about noise reduction here, I've noticed in Lightroom when this is toggled on that it adds about a 20 to the noise reduction, which is fine. I don't think that's a big deal, but let me know if you've got more experience with this. I think if it was on by default, which is what I'm pretty sure it was, then I'm just gonna leave it. My images look fine, so I don't wanna play around with that too much. Shutter speed, mechanical, I will probably never choose the other options. Yeah, mechanical's fine. Flash settings, I've played around with a flash a little bit once on this camera, but nothing to comment on really. Digital zoom off, perspective control off, customized control, and then, you can start getting more specific. Oh yeah, on that, Leica content credentials, yes, I have that signed on with the copyright should be produced by artist. I should probably change that name though. Let's go back. Cool. I think that pretty much covers most of the essential settings.